The Brooklyn Nets are plus 250 favorites to hoist the Larry O'Brien Trophy despite very little time for their star trio to get acquainted together on the floor. Does that concern you enough to avoid betting them at this number? Eric, we'll start with you here.
I'm going to steer clear because you're just not getting enough value. You're talking about a lot of unknowns going into it. And it's not even the component of them not having a number of games to play with each other. I don't have a lot of concerns. There's certain teams that would need to be in sync. They're all such good individual scorers that can just make things happen with the ball in their hands that it's hard to get away from it. Kevin Durant can be a plug and play on any basketball team, period, in the NBA. James Harden, yeah, he needs the ball in his hands, but is a great passer and very, we know the kind of ridiculous hot streaks he can get on scoring a basketball too. It's just so hard for me to imagine in each of these series going down the line that if one of the three is hot, they're not going to just play through that guy continuously. And that's basically what we saw with Golden State. That was their recipe with Curry, Clay, and Durant. It just became who's the hot hand. And it wasn't until injuries really took hold again in that Toronto series a number of years later after they went on that hot run when Durant joined and it was just, they were a juggernaut. And then Durant had his Achilles issue and you had Klay Thompson get injured and had the ACL deal. And it basically all fell apart for them in that finals against Toronto. And you saw Toronto there. And we're talking about injuries once more. And that's kind of the cloud that hangs over this Nets team. But so long as you even have two of the three, I feel like they have to be considered the favorite in the East for sure. And so it really comes down to who's their Western Conference Finals matchup. And you can maybe hedge out of that position if you wanted to take Brooklyn. So maybe I don't hate it that much, but there's still enough of question marks about the health, about them being able to just stay on the floor for a month and a half, which is kind of the next string of runs. Like we're going to be playing basketball until July. And so I kind of want to stay away from these numbers. I think live betting the lines, especially when teams go down 1-0, when they go down 2-1, there's such value you can find by betting the other side of that, especially, now that there is going to be some semblance of a home court this season. I really kind of like doing that more than I like betting right now.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like I was saying in last segment that I think there are still more value. There's more value in going to the Sixers, going to the Bucks, two teams that have been right there with the Nets all year long. And granted, that has been with them playing mostly with at least one guy out, if not two guys out for portions of the year. So I don't think it's any discredit against the Nets. It's just about trying to find the best value for yourself. And I think the Nets, the Sixers, and the Bucks are probably the closest three in that grouping there. And if you have any other teams in the East you like, I think, Knicks fans out there, I don't think it's crazy to try to take the Knicks in the hopes that maybe they do put together one of these runs that the defense should be sharp and should continue to play about as smart as a Thibodeau coach team should be. So I think that's it. But the thing with the Nets to me is really just that you're paying this price tag for a team that hasn't shown it yet. And I think they are very overpowered, but all it takes is facing the Lakers in the finals. All it takes is facing the Clippers and figuring something out along the way. The Jazz really putting it together, over the playoffs, I think is something that's also in range too. It wouldn't shock me if the Suns were a team that can, actually make this run here, even though Vegas is not buying it on them right now. I think there are just a lot of ways for the Nets to play short, and doesn't even account for the fact that A, we have the injuries that Eric was talking about a little bit there, but B, Kyrie has made some quotes this week about how basketball is not the most important thing right now, which is not what you want to hear. And I know he is a man of the world right now and trying to key in on things in the geopolitical climate and all of that. And I know people want to make fun of him. I think he does some things that do seem like they have some merit and all of that, but it is a drag on his attention at a time where you really want to hear this guy being like, yeah, I'm locked in right now. I will be here. It wouldn't shock me if you had Kyrie just have another sojourn for a portion of the first round. And, at that point, you sometimes put the team behind the eight ball in a way that's not the best. There's some ways that it could go bad here for the Nets. So
did you say sojourn?
A sojourn, yeah.
I don't even know what that means.
Like just, like taking a trip away from the team, basically. Like he's done a couple times.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Okay. Taking a hiatus or sojourn. I've never heard that word. It was so impressive.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for the pat on the head for my using the word.
Spags has an incredible vocabulary.
Yeah.
I did well on the SAT.
As do you, Eric.
Incredible diction, if you will.
Oh, I put the dick in diction. That's what
you really do
with my personality.
Drop the K.
But I would say overall that to me is the thing with the Nets is that there's a lot of ways it can get weird and you aren't looking for these contingencies to throw you curveballs like I was talking about earlier. And something I really have taken to heart from what Dr. Ben has talked about previously, just trying to make the bets a straight line for yourself. And I don't know. I just think there's more value going to Milwaukee. Like remember last year, people were falling all over themselves to bet Milwaukee as a favorite to win the title or, one of the top 2 or 3. Now they're like number 7 on the list. Like take those odds and hope that maybe people just aren't buying in on the right things right now, buying in on the hype.
All right. And that was Brooklyn and the Nets. Hope you all enjoyed.
Lovely.
Next up, Awesemo tells the future. Spags, be careful what you wish for, as we talked about before. You asked for a sing-along in the run sheet on this morning's MLB strategy show. So a sing-along is what he shall get, Eric.
Oh my God.
Awesemo tells the future. Awesemo tells the future. Awesemo tells the future today. There it is. That's all.
So it's really more of a hook than a whole song, I guess.
That was incredible.
Thank you. Yep.
That just happened. Anyway, all of the finals and conference finals odds are conveniently posted over at OddsShopper. So are there any that you are looking to bet at their current numbers? Spags, we're going to start with you here. I need to get your feedback right away.
I mean, I think we talked about some of the futures bets that I liked in terms of the title for Eastern Conference winner as well, like kind of the same theory here. I do think the Bucks and the Sixers as being plus 300, plus 375, 300 for the Sixers, 375 for the Bucks. I think that's one that jumps out to me. And the Knicks as well, who I mentioned, I think it's interesting that they are fifth overall here. Obviously, they are a team that's not getting maybe as much respect as you would expect, based on some of the heat they've had in New York. I know their fans are very excited based on the people I know back home out that way. But I would think the Knicks too, plus 4,000 to win the East, to me is an interesting future one. And I think you can place these bets now knowing that you have the confidence of that Eric backed song. I think really that to me is the main thing here. How could you have any questions about any bets you experienced today because of that magical music that just came through?
I mean, honestly, it's just, I'm going to be very serious now because this is a very serious topic to me. But the Los Angeles Clippers, if you don't win the finals, I might not be able to afford to get married. So I need the Clippers to win an NBA title more than anything, because I don't think I've ever had a position. So last year, the Lakers, I was driving through Vegas on my way to go back to South Dakota back in June. Basically kind of realized that once the bubble was going to start, there was no way that the Lakers weren't like the prime team to win in that kind of an atmosphere, where it's just basically like, who's the most talented team? Once you heard how easy it was to be shooting in that gym. And I don't know that that was necessarily super statistically significant, unless you were TJ Warren, who just went berserk, but and Terrence Ross as well, who talked about how easy it was to be shooting there. But the Lakers basically in a vacuum have the most talented out of anybody in the league. But the Clippers, I just feel like defensively, there's just so many pieces that they've been able to kind of stagger these minutes for Kawhi and Paul George super effectively. They've been able to build them back up after some injury. They have just been able to coast this entire regular season. And I think that they're healthy in a way a lot of these other teams aren't in the West. We have question marks about Donovan Mitchell. We have question marks about LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Phoenix, I have question marks because they just haven't had a lot of playoff experience or success in Chris Paul's case. But Ayton and Booker being your 2 and 3, or your 1 and 2, however you want to like group them together, between the three of them with Chris Paul. I just have so many question marks about these other top teams that are huge contenders. The Clippers, I feel like they're really, really due. And Doc Rivers, I don't think he's the worst coach in the entire world. He definitely was terrible in the bubble by playing Harrell over Zubats and making some poor decisions. And that will not be happening because, Montrezl Harrell doesn't play for the Clippers anymore. And Zubats is going to be playing 30 plus minutes. And he is one of the better, more improved defenders in the post. And not saying that he's going to be effective against a guy like Drummond or Anthony Davis, but he can at least stand his own. And then Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, I see big things from them in this postseason. I think they've set themselves up perfectly with the draw. Tanking was just too easy for them the last 2 days to fall exactly in the position that they wanted to. If I had to bet one team right now, I mean, I have enough invested in them. I'm going to wait to pull the trigger for a little bit later, but I'll just take my plus 600 on the Clippers and move on.
I would point out that there's something I did hear Bill Simmons talk about. So I think, if you are like me and been a fan of his since his days writing columns and, now, maybe lost a little bit on the fastball in terms of analysis and all of that and sticking with the times, you could take it with a grain of salt. But I did think there's one point that he raised, which is sort of a classic Bill Simmons one, with talking about the karma of the Clippers sort of tanking that game to try to get the matchup they think they want against the Mavericks. It's a little bit of a disrespect to the Mavericks, a team who has played them pretty tough historically and certainly gave them a scare last year. But I think overall, like this spot for the Mavericks, like it wouldn't shock me to see karma bite them in the ass again, whether that be Paul George getting a dizzy spell because his tuna salad had too much mayo, or I don't know, whatever else could happen with the Clippers based on what we know them historically. But it's something that bothers me about him, how with them every year, like, yeah, if the Lakers want to tank and half-ass it and do all the rest stuff, and I get there are legitimate reasons why you rest those guys more, but like they've earned it. Like they won the title last year. They sort of deserve it. Kawhi has won a title, but Paul George has not won anything yet. And I don't want to do the full media narrative thing, but like when you're tanking, there is a bit of a karmic quick retribution. I think that's due. And I would just be reluctant to buy in on the Clippers where they are being taxed like they are a contending champion here or a defending champion. And instead they're just a team that continues to half-ass it at every turn and thinks they're due for something here. And I think that, to me, like, they might find out fast. The Mavericks team who played above their heads with guys getting hurt all year, like, this is kind of the scrappy squad, I think, going against the Clippers, that they may think they wanted to face them. I don't think they know what they're doing there. I think they may not want to face them as much as they seem to think they do.